So welcome here to our pal Hana time on Tuesday night at First Unitarian Church of Honolulu. I'm Rev T J, and yeah, our theme for today is home remedies is always fair game, if that's what we want to talk about. But we're talking about multi-generational worship and growth and relationships and intergenerational worship. Intergenerational relationships with our wonderful consulting director of religious education, the wonderful Dr. Michele Townsend Grove. Someone always calls me at 6 o'clock. My friends, I tell them this is the one thing that's like always on my schedule, and they still can't help themselves. Pardon me. So with that, I just, one of the reasons this kind of came up is obviously there's a lot of questions about the future of, the church and things like that, or hopes and one of the things I think it's important for everyone to kind of think about from a practical perspective are, the youngest among us, and how we're relating and welcoming and including and sharing all of the great gerunds with the youngest among us. And so with that in mind, I just wanted to, I asked Dr. Michele to kind of think about some of those things. And I know that some of the folks in the RE committee have also been thinking about this. And I just wanted to kind of open up a time. This is just like always at Pal Hana, questions are always fine. So we're going to sort of get started with talking about a few other things, maybe ask some questions of the folks here. But if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. And since this is sort of like just us talking Pal Hana, if you want to just put it in the chat to everyone, or if you want to just raise your hand, or if you want to just kind of speak up if computer raising hands isn't really your thing. We just want to have a good free flow of conversation. So I don't know, Dr. Michele, did you want to say a word? I've been talking for a little bit.
No, this is great. This is great. Yeah, and you framed it well. And I know that there's going to be a lot of places where we can engage you all in this conversation. And so before we go too much further though, let's look at something that can help us also bring some other experts into the room. How many people here currently have a person between the age of 0 and 18 living in their home or in your home a lot? So so we have a bunch. Good. See, you have a bunch of kind of people who are experiencing this generation on a daily basis. Now, how many people in this room have at some point in your life had a person or persons between the age of 0 and 18 living in your home? See, the other frame of generations. Okay, now the third question. How many of you all here have ever been between the age of 0 and 18? Anybody? Okay. And Allison has her hand up. Okay, Allison, are you raising your? Oh,
because it was a principal task.
Now, I want to check to make sure. Allison, do you have a question, or are you raising your hand to be a part of the participation?
Raising my hand to be part of the participation.
Good. I want to honor that, but I also didn't want to ignore you if you had a question. So,
Nope.
What we need is a new emoji that's kind of like this. And that way, then we would know if they have a question or they want a clarification. This is raise your hand because Michele asked you to raise your hand. This is, I don't get it. Okay. So let's move on. One of the things that's happening all over the continent and beyond in UU churches, and this would include you all as well, is the understanding of how we all are in relationship. The conversation that we are having today is about one specific kind of relationship, and we're talking about relationships with children and youth between the ages of 0 and 18. However, I will tell you that by learning some of the tricks and some of the ways in which we are in relationship with different generations, It will help us to understand how we are in relationship with a wide diversity of people, no matter their race, their gender, their sexuality, their abilities, whatever it might be. This is an informative on many levels. Okay, so yes, we're talking about age relationships. How do we have relationships across the generations, particularly with the youngest within our congregation? And I have always referred to them as members of the congregation, even if they've never signed the book. Hey, and Reverend TJ or somebody else who really knows it, what's the rules for this congregation on becoming an official member?
That's a great question, Dr. Michele. And on Sunday and in a little while, you'll be hearing that the discussions to make changes to membership have the 8th Principle Task Force has decided to move those conversations perhaps to a broader conversation about the church's bylaws and about how we really do define membership and welcome at the church. And also, there's just a lot going on right now. So in case you didn't know, we were going to have 2 information sessions and then perhaps vote on changing some of the definitions of what it means to be a member. So the answer is it's literally kind of in flux. We've actually had changes to how you become a member happen at this church for the last annual meeting too. So that's a very open discussion right now. I think I'm fairly characterizing that. But as far as the requirements, I don't remember if the age is, I don't remember if there's an age, if it's 16 or 18. Danica, I see your hand.
I do remember in 1996 signing the book at age 16.
Yeah, I think it's.
So unless it's changed.
No. So, wonderful. So
it's not in the bylaw. There is
yeah,
no.
there is. I think that's why I was not remembering any age requirement to be a member.
Wow.
It's just, it's really just be in sympathy with the principals, have completed a board approved orientation membership process and to make a pledge of record. That is currently what the requirements are. There currently is not a requirement to fulfill that pledge, but we're looking at the proposal to the bylaws that we've decided to, that the 8th Principle Task Force decided to talk about at a later date, was to remove the financial requirement. But we're having a deeper conversation about that over the coming months. So very long, involved answer, but that's the answer. So,
but thank you, because that helps us to understand, A, there's some fluidity to this, that there's things always in progress, and B, where is it that becoming or being a member is incredibly accessible? How can you make that the most accessible to a wide variety? And normally congregations have age, and so so children and youth who are under the age of where they can become a member in those scenarios are kind of floating in this weird identity. And so for me, the way I solve that is by saying they are members of this congregation. And is that absolutely correct? Maybe not. And yet for me, it's a way of saying they are fully a part of us. They are not just half in, half out. So before we get too much into the conversation, if you are a person who has a child or youth between the ages of 0 or 18 living with you, I would love for you to take a moment and speak into the room anything that you would like this audience to know about that population. And even maybe ask a question. We won't answer it all yet, but I'm going to write it down. Is there a question you would like to bat around? And you don't have to do this, but I want to open the floor to you all. Anything you would like this population to know, or a question you would like to ask?
if you'd all feel comfortable with me starting, I'll start one, if that's all right. Just so that no one has to jump in. One thing that was always important to me and still is to really learn. I know it's a funny place to start, but to really learn everyone's name. It's something I think it would be nice for everyone to know. So I just wanted to put that one out there. And I think it really helps for me on Sunday mornings. From just a practical standpoint, when I ask someone to do something by name, like collect more spree candy pillows, it's just easier to get it done. So there's practical reasons for it. There's also safety reasons. When you call someone to prevent them from walking where they shouldn't, they get a much faster response when someone hears their name of any age. So I'll just offer that one out there to get started.
Nice. And I think, and once again, think about that. That's true for all ages.
All
so
ages.
Even though we are talking about, think about the importance when somebody actually addresses you by name and takes the time to learn how to pronounce your name and how to actually call you what you wish to be called. So see, there's a lot of things here that we're going to talk about. Anybody else, anything else? And we'll come back to this at other points. Let's see, Rachel and then Danica. Okay.
So I was just going to add on to what Reverend TJ said about the name thing. It's just also being seen and known in order to build that sense of trust. And it's just not just being seen, right? But it's the knowing, it's the personalized part of it. Like remembering something that happened in a previous conversation so that when you interact with them again, they know that you listened and you saw them and heard them the previous time. It builds trust, and that's, I think, something that's really important for our community and with our kids.
Nice. Thank you for that. Danica, what do you have?
I have a story from last Sunday. We were all getting ready, and Juniper was in the area playing with all those pillows. This was in the gallery, and I walked around the corner to see her dancing, and then I looked over, and there was a member of the church doing the same dance moves, mirroring her, interacting with her the way she was moving, and that felt wonderful to see that interaction. I don't think Juniper had ever met this person formally, but this person was watching her and being with her in a way that she was enjoying the world. And that was really special.
Wow. I love it. That's neat. Okay, Nancy, go for it.
This I was thinking about in the name thing, and my grandkids recognize Reverend T J. They in Zoom, they say, oh, there's Reverend T J. And there's, they know people, and it feels like their community. And I think we do need to have them make some name tags that have no pins in them and have them wear something. That's it.
Actually, that's a good point. So within the culture of your congregation, you wear name tags, yes?
Mostly.
Are there name tags for all ages as well?
Not right now.
Interesting. See that right there. See, so all of a sudden the culture, and this is one of those things that is easy to not think about until all of a sudden it's there. To think, okay, so the message that children and youth get is until you're a certain age, you're not fully a part of it. The name tag has heavy symbols. So, and that's an easy remedy, and not just RE name tags, right? But actually a part of the full. And so I think those kinds of things are helpful for information, but it also sends a signal that, hey, you are 100% a part of this community. Thank you for that. Eleanor, go for it.
So actually right now in the name tag sign up, it says adult name tags. Which I know why we have that. It's because there was a revolution and it got squashed. So, but yes, I definitely agree. Name tags without pins would be fantastic. I would be happy to make like lanyards or anything. If the kiddos don't have sensory issues for wearing like a necklace type item, that kind of thing.
Nice.
I was thinking about what I wanted you all to know. And mine's is slightly different than everybody else's. Many of you know who Margot is. She's my firstborn, and she's one of the older kids that many of you know. Like there's Eli, and then Margot is like a half step below. So they're in the same cohort. And Margot is an artist. She sees the world through drawing and through sculpture, and just like she sees the world completely differently than I do, which is through spreadsheets, as you know. And it's the sacredness of spreadsheets. And I don't know how I birthed this amazing child that sees the world in a completely different way. But yes, I want a community that holds that sacred too. Well, also holds the spreadsheet sacred, but yes, all of it.
Nice. I love this. This is good. Thank you. And so I'm going to add a layer in just a few minutes about the role of family in this, because when you have children and youth who are under the care or a part of the care, because children can care too, that there are some relationships, not just with the child and youth that are important, but with their family. And that's safety for everybody involved. So just know in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about that. But first, I want to ask all of you to reflect back to when you were a certain age. Pick an age between the age of 0 and 18. And reflect for a moment on what it is that you craved most from community. So pick an age, say, pick a number like 5. And then say, what did I need most? What did I want most? Think for a moment. And then I'll invite you to share answers. And when you share your answer, I'm going to, tell the age you're thinking of and what I remember needing most is. And there's some answers coming in the chat, which is awesome. Does anybody want to share it out loud as well? You're invited to do it both in the chat or out loud. Let me start because I've got one. I did go to 5. So when I was 5, I remember one of the things I needed most was to be told that I was doing well. I needed affirmation. And that doesn't mean it helped to power me to know that I was doing good things.
I went to 5 also because it's easy, because that's kindergarten, and all I wanted to do was build blocky things with my best friend Michael Melzer, who we're actually still friends. But yeah, so it's a kind of belonging. But that was a big and to get 100% on all my letter people tests. I think I might be the letter people generation, but that's another story. But so achievement and buddies were sort of my things that came to mind.
And I like that, to build with another person, not just by yourself, but with another person.
Yeah.
That's cool. Anybody else have something they would like to share? Beth and then Danica. Oh, Beth, you're muted. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm in high school. I'm high school age. And the reason I'm in high school is because my father has died and my mother is an alcoholic. And I wanted more than anything for people to come to my home and tell me that I was doing a good job of holding everything together.
Wow. Danica and then Allison.
This may be particular to my identity, but I think sort of 8 onwards, my own identity, being a twin growing up can be a bit rough sometimes. So it was wanting to be just Danica, not always Danica and Eleanor. Eleanor may have similar feelings about this, but yeah.
This is good. Allison, thank you.
When I grew up UU, and in my at that time we were doing like the church across the street kind of thing, where we would go and visit other churches, and I loved that sense of community and being able to explore. But I also loved the community in our church because, you know, in reflection, looking back at it, we were always putting on these plays and these musicals, and they were intergenerational. And I remember doing Yanu Mamu and you know, the Tree of Life, and we painted all the sets and we sang and we rehearsed, and it was just a really good feeling of community, and I really enjoyed that.
Wow.
Especially as an only child, it was nice to have a place.
Okay.
That was not school.
Nice. Thank you. And Esther.
Well, I thought of age 12, and what I wanted was to be enjoyed. That I was in chorus, and I remember a group of us singing quartets, and it gave me great pleasure if people enjoyed the music we were making. And I think generally that was true, that I wanted people to, whatever it was that I was doing, acting, music, mathematics, whatever I was doing, for people to get pleasure from seeing me do that or hearing me do that.
Nice. Nice. Oh, I'm getting all kinds of ideas. I don't know about you all. So, okay, so anybody else? Yeah. Now, is it Keith? Keith, did you raise your hand or were you going for a button? I want to make sure there's space. And you're muted.
Keith, we can't hear you because you're still on mute. You need to unmute so we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Yes.
What I want to know is how, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. I want to know how to talk to different people of different generations. I don't know how to talk to younger people or teens. I don't know what they're really interested in. I don't know how much they're interested in me. I mean, but the point is that I don't know how to talk to different people of different generations. Even people of my generation, I feel kind of out of place because I don't really feel as old as they are. I'm still getting through that one. So I kind of find that sometimes I'm really kind of awkward in terms of being comfortable with people of different generations, from 5 to 60 or 70, and I'm not sure how to bridge that gap.
Thank you. Excellent question. Okay, I have written that one down because we're going to spend some time on that. And I want to ask one question because this question is going to help dive into that fully. Okay, and so I'm going back to you all who have children or youth ages 0 to 18 living in your home or in your home on a very regular basis. And this is the question. When different generations are in relationship with the children and youth that are a part of that family unit, how do you want to be involved in that relationship? How do you want to be in that relationship? So as, say, an adult starts to make a relationship with someone who is 12, and that 12-year-old lives in your home, how do you want to be a part of that? Does that make sense? And this is important because, and it's a part of some of the safer congregations work we do, is in that is making sure that the whole household, in whatever ways the household needs to be involved in these relationships, is there. Partially because they can speak some of the sentences. Eleanor, what you did for Margot, for example, by giving us a picture of how Margot interacts with the world, that is one way, right? And that is helpful for us. So anybody else, how do you want to be involved with these relationships as some generations are in relationship with the children and youth in your care?
That's such an interesting question, because I think our generation of parents, we are supposed to be uber, and like we were supposed to never let our children out of our sight. We are never supposed to let go. And yet I long for that. I long for being in church where I feel safe and Juniper feels safe interacting with others without me necessarily being like right there negotiating every single interaction.
Right.
So that's a hard one. But then, are there situations where having me there makes it safer both for Juniper and anybody else involved? And maybe not just safer, but even more comfortable.
And we can use this time to explore it and dive deeper. But and so it's okay if we don't have answers to this, or we're still reflecting on it. Any other thoughts? Go for it, Rachel. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm gonna agree with Danica. It's kind of I think the way that the question is worded and posed makes it challenging, just because of how we've been expected to parent by the societal, I guess, norms of today. It's so weird, because it's much different than how my parents parented. And I was like, go out, don't come home till the lights come on outside. If you're not bleeding, you're okay.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it's just it's very different right now. And for good reason too, I think, like, that we have extra caution with things. For me, like, I want to be involved to a point, but I want it to be facilitated through our community, the interactions, like knowing that we have things in place, like safe congregations, gives me that level of trust and ability that the other community members within our congregation have that shared understanding and agreement of safe congregations. And it does give a level of safety and security and trust there. Because I want my children to have relationships and feel safety and trust with other adults within our congregation and on our church grounds, or within a church sanctioned event or activity, right? Like, or if it's something that we are doing, like having a potluck, like young families going to the beach, right? Like, we're doing a thing at the beach, but it's like these are people that are in our trusted, beloved community, right? I'd love to be able to be like, hey, I'm going to the bathroom, somebody's watching my children when we're at the beach, and not have to feel like, You gotta take them with you, because there are people there that my children know, and that's the thing, that my children know and trust are caring for them, and that I trust that are caring for them, because that's important too. Otherwise they would look around and be like, where's mom? Where'd she go? She just like, who am I supposed to go to? I have an emergency. Like, yeah.
Nice. This is good. All right, Nancy and then Allison. Thank you for all of this.
There's a Polynesian style to watching children, and that is any adult within 6 feet is responsible for that child. So if I see a kid who's getting in trouble and I'm within six feet of them and I don't see anybody else, I'm gonna, say something if necessary.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
No, see, this is good. And so let's hold this too, as we look at both, some of the norms and values of the community, and how, some of those are implicit, and how do we though make those explicit so that they're almost intentional. And that's a key issue here. So and communicate it so that even a visitor walking in understands, or at least can start the process of understanding. So this is really good. Allison, what are you thinking?
Oh, I'm reminded of a tradition that we used to have, which was doing a Labor Day retreat back in my home church. And what was so wonderful about that was that the kids got to run wild and free in like little packs of, little people. And they were perfectly safe on this, in this contained area, camp area. And my daughter loved it because she, just go off. I mean, there would be other activities set up for the kids, and there'd be someone around always to watch them, but they had a lot of freedom. And I think that's one of the things that kids don't get as much of. I mean, I grew up in the generation where, you get put outside at 10 o'clock and then, you're on your own with no phone, no cell phone or anything. And, you're out, taking care of yourself for, until it gets dark. I know those aren't those times anymore, but it's nice to have a place where kids can have some sort of feeling of autonomy.
Wow. This is fun. Nice. Nancy, this is good. Thank you.
I want to just put in one plug that in November, Raina, who we all met at the Y, Raina is the director of, the executive director of the Nu'uanu Y, will be hosting what they're calling Queer Camp up at one of the camps that they own up on the North Shore, where all are welcome, all allies and everyone, but it's for families of all kinds and all different frameworks to just be together for a weekend and run wild on the North Shore. And Rena's, I made it very clear, we're very interested in very much information about this. So just wanted to give everyone, when I get an actual date, I'll see if I can get one very soon, but I just want to put that out there. And I saw the Young's hands. Go ahead, Young.
Yes, go for it.
Well, one of the things I think about when our kids who are now adults were children is that we had potlucks and game nights, and the adults and the children played games together. And I think they all really enjoyed that. And they got to know the adults in ways they wouldn't have.
At church.
At church. Yeah, it was like a Friday night potluck with games afterwards.
Oh, it sounds like fun, doesn't it?
It was fun.
I want to do that. I want to do that. Yeah.
Me too.
So all kinds of neat places where we could actually start building relationships outside of the Sunday morning. We try to pack so much into Sunday morning because we're used to that being the center time, that when we can find ways to expand it out, we can relax into relationships in new ways. So as a parent, and I have my daughter Helena will be 16 in June. In fact, Helena's turning 16 with you while we are there on the island. Isn't that cool? So her birthday is while we were there. I get to meet you, my family.
Party.
Yeah.
Birthday party.
But as a parent, there is one thing I want, and that is that anybody, first of all, I want Helena to have many multi-generational, intergenerational relationships. I crave those for her because they are beneficial. And I've seen how they inspire her and have fed her to be the person she is today. In addition, though, I also want to have a relationship with that person too. And I'm talking about in church communities in particular. So for example, if Helena is getting to know someone, I want to also know them. Not that I have to have the same relationship, but I want that person to know who we are as a part of our little household, group. I want them to know that I'm the mom, and that's my title, and Andy's the dad, that's his title in our group, and just to know those things and that we know you. So it's not just about Helena getting to know you, it's about us knowing you. And then that knowing opens up some of the freedoms that you all are talking about. Does that make sense? So that's the one thing that that comes from my own kind of thing. So, okay, so in a minute, we're going to get to Keith's question, but first, Lee, go for it.
Well, a lot of what you folks have been sharing reminds me of this past Sunday I was with Danica in RE for the older kids, and we had taken them outside on the playground. And then Patrick and Levi, they're pretty new to our church. They had their two younger daughters, and one is Arizona, and I can't remember the other one's name. But they went to the nursery, but after church was over, they came out and they were playing on the playground. And I think the younger one's maybe about 2 years old. And she was trying to climb up the rope into the play structure. And she seemed like she was struggling. And I said, do you want some help? And she's like, yeah. So I kind of helped her up. And then she went up and then she came down and then she wanted to go back up again. But anyhow, her parents, we had made a little bit of a relationship just because the parents had come to and adore. I reached out to them with an email, said hello, welcome. They came to one of our Reach book groups. So we had formed a little bit of a relationship. So that day when I was helping the little one, they said very kindly and lovingly, I think she's kind of playing you. She just wants you to help her. So they had a comfort level saying that to me, and it was like, oh, but then I was kind of torn because I felt like we were having fun together and had this relationship, and I didn't want to like step away and kind of break away from that. But then I wanted to honor the parents saying, she really can't do that by herself. So yeah.
And I think that this is a good story because one of the things that comes from this is the idea, first of all, that every family unit, however it is configured, is going to be different, which is why relationships are so important, so that you all have enough room to have those conversations. And then to know then that gives this larger umbrella of trust. So Keith, this is a part of an answer, but just a very small part. Okay, so anybody else before we move to Keith's question, because it was a very good one.
Oh, Esther, go ahead.
I put something in the chat that I realized when I was a little kid, I just wanted to be amused. I wanted to play with anybody who would play with me, adults, children, didn't matter. Once I became something like 13 years old, I wasn't interested in anyone except people my own age. And that lasted for quite a while, at least until I had kids of my own. So there was a period when people my own age were the only ones that I had any interest in being with. And
okay. See,
it sounds like I'm the only one because no one else mentioned anything like that. But
well, and
there's hands.
it's still a truth.
Yeah.
Yep, Danica, go for it.
It just occurred to me, Eleanor and I often talk about changing expectation on parenthood. But I also wonder if part of the mix is changing expectations on children's behavior as well. Just having that conversation about how we all expect the children to behave during the service, or how we expect them to behave going outside, or within the gallery, etc., or in passing, and just to have that be an open conversation, knowing that there's no one right answer, but maybe, to get to Keith's point, that make relief a bit of the anxiety if we're all sort of on the same page about, well, and just knowing each child a little bit more, but just understanding that expectations on childhood have also shifted over time.
Excellent. Thank you. This is good. And I think too, and I'm kind of, so, Esther, your point is an interesting one. And I think it's one that we should chew on for a while, to think, okay, because what does that mean? What does that mean when someone, no matter what their age 0 to 125, is at a point where they either want to kind of not be in wide relationships, they want to be with their own peer groups, they want to be in very specific places, or they're finding they're craving larger. How is it that we navigate finding that out and then respecting their wishes and needs? And I know that some of the basis for me is picking up the signals, but still being willing to be respectful and calling people by name and always saying hello. So for example, there might be a group of youth who, they're not really interested in having a relationship with me, and I'm okay with that. I'm still going to say hello, and I'm going to call them by name. And I am going to take a moment to honor. It's almost like when you say hello to someone, you're honoring the presence of who they are in that moment. I'm still going to do that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to turn away 100%, but then I might not go any further because that's not where they are. Eleanor, what are you thinking?
So one thing I learned from Russell Castanero is to effectively say hello to a small child, you have to get down to their level, like physically. And I fully acknowledge that not everybody can do this. Not everybody has knees that easily bend in both directions. So I'm not, but I think a signal of respect is crouching down and talking to them as, at their height. Because all of you are just, all of us, not so much me because I'm really short, but we're all like a bunch of knees and butts just roaming around with like heads floating way up at the top like balloons. So being able to have that one-on-one face-to-face interaction, I think, is super important. And I also wanted to, something that I've become aware of parenting in my generation and in my culture is very big on giving children choices, especially when it comes to greetings and their bodily autonomy. And this becomes sticky when it's like, no, you have to go to the bathroom, but it's my body. No, you really have to go to the bathroom. But so there's limits to this. It's not like a universal thing, but like just I would love it if people say, hi, Margot, do you want a fist bump or a hug or maybe a wave? Like, give her some choices. And it maybe she's just going to ignore you, but I'll take that personally, But I think the more, like, this was a habit that I've had to get into. Like, I ask my child all the time, can I give you a hug? And she can say no. And that's fine. And because I know that, especially for the kiddos in the program that I know, I just want to scoop them up and give them hugs and kisses. But that's, there's now a language about how to do that appropriately in our generation. And I think it's, anyway, that's how we're going to go.
Thank you. No, this is good. All right. So Keith asked a really good question. How do we talk to different people of different generations and owning that sometimes it feels awkward? So I would like, first of all, to open this up to the floor, knowing that what Eleanor just told you is actually a part of that. And sometimes it's also about greeting, so greeting and knowing names and getting to their level. The other thing that I am going to put in the chat, if you all would like to access it at a different point, and I can find a way to get this to you all more universally, is a YouTube video by one of the people I greatly admire. It's a person by the name of Adora Zvitkat. I can never say their name. I need to keep practicing their last name. Adora, and this is over 10 years old now, so Adora's probably in her 20s. But as a middle schooler, Adora did a TED Talk on what it means to be a child who is also a leader, and actually challenges adults on multiple levels. One of them by using the word childish. She asks very clearly, why do we think childish is a dirty word? So this is a video that can actually give you some ideas on not just how to have conversations with children and youth, but how to deepen that relationship and maybe even find ways to invite children and youth into the communities in which we are active within the congregation. Dare I say, even into leadership. So those are some things to be considering. Okay, so what advice do you all have for each other? What things have worked for you in building relationships with this generation? And there's actually a couple of generations. I always forget where different generations begin and end. But for those in the age of 0 to 18, what success stories do you have on building relationships? Let's educate each other with our experience. Lee, go for it. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Earlier this year at a work party at the church, the young people there had gathered on the picnic benches and they were having some snacks. And I went over to join them, and Eli was sitting down on one side of the bench, and there was like, to his right, there was an open area. And I said, may I sit here? And he's like, no, can you sit over here? I said, sure. So I sat on the other side. And I think Rev T J, you were at the same picnic table too. And he just had wonderful stories to share with us, and his passion around space. And I just learned so much from him. So just not so much me talking, but listening to him. Like, I have an idea when the next time I see Eli, something he might be interested in talking about.
Nice. See, and it takes some consistency, because you don't always get conversation from people. That's one of the things about UUs. We're so conversation laden, and this isn't just about children and youth. This is all ages. Not everybody enjoys deep conversations. So if a child or a youth doesn't engage with you, that's not necessarily a personal affront. Just know, that you can keep trying with other children, youth, or in gentle ways, finding new ways. Eleanor, go for it.
I think, especially with my children and my niece, is I embrace my awkwardness. I am all levels of awkward. And it's part of just being honest with them. It's like, and this can be both for good things and for bad things. It's like, or just for like embarrassing things. Mommy farted. It happens. Everything's okay. It's funny. Yes, it's funny. We can all laugh. Or if I'm grumpy, I could say, oh, like once I figured it out, he's like, oh, yeah, mommy's grumpy. Maybe I'm hungry. I don't always talk about myself in the third person, but it's like I'm hungry. Like that's very simplistic, but it's like just being honest with them about your struggles. It's like, I'm feeling really awkward right now, or you know what, I was a little scared when this happened, or just sharing something personal, I think is a good way to do it. Another thing that has helped me with my children is the prompts that I use to solicit information. This doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. Is it's like, can you think of a time, something that made you laugh today? Or can you tell me what it feels like when you're frustrated? Because she's obviously frustrated or something like that. So just changing the prompt. It's not like, how was your day? It's more making her think of a moment. So that's one good way of interacting with 8-year-olds. Some 8-year-olds, I should say.
Excellent. This is good. And I encourage you all to continue these conversations, to be thinking about experiences that you've had, and to be in conversation with each other so that you can naturally move into a place where, even if you embrace your awkwardness or your discomfort, of starting to build these relationships with children and youth. So now,
May I just add one?
Please,
thing
Reverend
here?
TJ, please.
It comes back to sort of what's the word I'm looking for? But I don't know, communication 101. Like, say you were learning English, one of the first things you would learn is the sentence "I feel" and then an adjective. You can begin so many conversations with people of all ages. I feel anxious. I feel happy. I feel joyful. And I know that that's the beginning of a conversation. I feel this. And to Dr. Michele's point about conversations at all ages, you know, that's true for everyone at all ages. And I wish I could say I'm stealing it from anywhere other than Fred Rogers, but if you watch the Fred Rogers documentary, if you're curious about how to communicate with people from the head of a Senate committee on communication down to a 4-year-old or younger, that documentary pretty much has, it's a 90-minute roadmap to communicating about feelings at all ages. So, I'm just saying that there's a lot there. I feel, when I did, anyway, someday when the recording's not on, I'll talk more about my childhood experiences where I learned to say, I feel. So
I love it.
Yeah.
And Reverend TJ, I wanted to ask you anyway, so this is really good. You have been doing some really cool things with families, and children and youth have been a part of this with worship. Do you have any insights or stories from those times that, or other times that you have been, with the children and youth, that you say, hey, this is the gift that I have seen from these children and youth for this congregation?
Yeah, during one of the we did a family chapel during a work party about Supriya, and you gave us the story, Dr. Michele, I think. Yeah,
I think so.
We hauled out all the instruments we could find, and there was like 2 or 3 to go around for each participant, and we made up, almost like Peter and the Wolf, different noises that would happen when different characters would speak. It wasn't part of the story. It all just presented itself because there were so many instruments. And so I would say that one of the things I noticed in that was how, when play was involved and it was all kind of spontaneous, how much all the children were helping each other remember which things go with which. When this woman speaks, it's bells. When this person speaks, it's this. And like Eli and Miles had it kind of sorted out, and then Margot was kind of, helping as well. But everyone was taking part. And I think that kind of very present activity of a thing to do, and we're all kind of in it together without too much. The thing I really enjoyed about it was how much noise we were making too, because all the adults were making so much noise. It was only fair that we also, it's like an opportunity to just be super loud also, which we don't normally get in the sanctuary. So I'm also like kind of saying, like, doing something sort of not unholy, but something different kind of holy in a holy place is also good. Like the sanctuary can also be for making a ton of noise and running around. It can also be for this. So that's one that comes to mind. And on the flip side, I think we did a beach cleanup that I learned a ton first of all, there's extremely bright parents, and nothing against the bright parents that are there educating us, but what the children told us about the dead fish that they were finding and about the plastic that they were uncovering, and the amount of plastic we actually did pick up was kind of shocking. And the engagement with other people watching our community pick up things at the beach and kind of join in too. I think those two, and there are others. I mean, there was the one when Stuart, when he was with us, climbed a tree to get a kite out of the tree for somebody else that wasn't even part of our group. And so there's been lots of fun. There's also the time I planned a whole song with my guitar and no one wanted to hear me play the guitar. And so it's all just on the fly, not all of it. You got to have a skeleton. I was always joke with Eleanor, and I'd kind of run my plan by some people. Sometimes I'd have maybe 8 elements for family worship, and I'd know we'd only get 4 in, but we had 8 just in case. Nan was always very helpful with that too. Helped me forgive myself when I didn't get all the songs right or something. So anyway, that's just some of the experiences. But I think that helping one another, doing kind of things in a fun space that they don't normally get to do that there, and then interacting with the community, the environment, are sort of some of the really poignant experiences and themes that kind of came out, I think. Wow. And correct me if I'm wrong, any families, but yeah.
This is cool. Thank you for that. And one of the reasons that this story is important is because as we're coming to a close, and I'm assuming Hana's an hour. Is that about right?
We release everyone on time as much as possible.
So just know this: everybody who is in this virtual room right now is in the midst of change with your congregation, right? So with Reverend TJ leaving, there is change, and everybody is affected and feeling that in different ways. And so as we hold each other in that, I invite you to also know that our children and youth are also either going to feel it or have already started to feel it, and to hold them as well. Okay, so that everybody who is a part of that, and to know the diversity of that is a part of the confusion of transitions, and yet at the same time, it's also a beauty, because then we can hold each other in the diversity of how we embrace it. Is that all right?
Yeah.
So, mahalo.
Yes.
You all are wonderful.
Thank you, everyone. So many good ideas. I hope, like last week, we'll when this is up, you'll send it to folks who weren't here to take a watch. I know there's some people who've had to leave and are looking forward to getting it, but I think we covered a lot of really important things tonight, and this will be a really good resource going forward. So have a wonderful evening. In the grand tradition of me telling you what I'm eating, I made rice, and I'm gonna make vegan street tacos this evening. So it's Taco Tuesday. So, but everyone, have a wonderful night. Mahalo and aloha.
Everyone.